Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of OPE. I am Iowa Joe, and this is a continuation of my off-season, off-topic episodes. This week, I am bringing a good friend on, one that I wanted to bring on last year, but we didn't get a chance to. She's been we've kind of intermingled over the years between our two pods, so it just made sense to try bringing her back this time. Dawn Dacquisto, I think I did that right. I was thinking over at the whole week. I was like, I knew what it was, and now I just blanked on it. But Dawn from Hey We Like Your Pod, her and Matt do, well, you guys have been kind of taking, once every 2-3 weeks now, but during the season, you're pretty much a weekly
Every week.
episode.
Every week. This is the first off season that we didn't stay every week, but I've been dealing with some health issues this summer, so we decided, hey, let's get our lives together. But we've been over. Are we 5 seasons now? Are we 5? No,
It's
we're
been a
4.
while. I
We're
think you
going
guys were
on
doing it
5
long
years.
before I.
Yeah. So, but this is the first off season that we haven't gone every week. So it's been kind of weird. I miss my Maddie. I miss talking to him.
Matt, he's going to get a big head from this, but Matt's one of the best guys that you ever wanted to meet out there.
Yeah.
And, I can understand that. If I had Matt as a podcast partner, I'd probably want to talk to him every week too.
We do.
Unlike
We
my
miss
podcast partner where I kick him off to the side when I don't need him.
Yeah, I can
That's
put him
not
on
true, Mike. I
vacation.
do appreciate you and your help and all that stuff. So,
Hi, Mike.
but that's not what we're to talk about this week. I wanted to do this like I was telling Don before the start of the podcast. Last year, when we were doing the top fives, I was trying to figure out a way to get this incorporated, but Mike's not really into it, so it was hard to do last year. But this year, with the off-season, off-topic episodes and me doing it kind of by myself, I wanted to talk about it a little bit, and this is going to be a true crime episode. Don't
Woohoo!
worry, we're not going to get into too many gory details
No.
on anything and that. We're just going to talk a little bit generically about true crime and all that stuff. So I guess the first question is, Dawn, what got you into being a true crime follower? I don't want to say enthusiast because then that just sounds kind of wrong, being
Yeah, it does.
enthusiastic about.
You're right. You're right. It does sound right. Well, okay. So that's a good question because I've had to ask myself that. My I'm not really I guess you could say I'm interested in true crime, but I'm a trial watcher.
Right.
So, which is a little different because I have a lot of friends who watch trials, but they also watch like all the documentaries and they
Yeah.
watch all that and also fiction. And I will not touch that. That stuff scares me. It's too scary. And the local news is too scary for me.
Yeah.
So I just watch trials, but I'll explain. So what got me into it, I didn't know. I guess, well, let's see, COVID happened
Yep.
and we're all stuck inside. And I'm sure you recall in Minnesota, there was the George Floyd murder by a police
Right.
officer. And despite my reluctance to do anything, to expose myself to anything gory or sad or anything that's make me squirmish or anything like that, I decided I was going to watch that trial.
Yeah.
And it was live streamed, and I believe it was on television too, but it was live streamed, and so I could watch every second of that trial, and that kind of started me, and then I got on into another case from that. And the next case I got into I'm still into because they keep arresting people. It's like a big conspiracy. A lot of people were involved. And it was the murder of a law professor in Florida. But so
Okay.
your question was why? Like what got me into it? So yes, I was interested in what happened to George Floyd and how the justice system worked, especially with a police officer being the person on trial.
Right.
But it took me a couple years to realize why I've had friends say this to me over the years. You have such a strong sense of justice, right? And it took me a long time to understand that it's because I myself was a victim of a very serious crime when I was 10 years old. And I kind of blocked it out. And about 20 years ago, it's the memories started coming back and such. And the person who tried to kidnap and kill me, basically, when I was 10, actually got a neighbor girl. She lived 4 blocks from
Wow.
me. Yeah, and she's much younger and so much more vulnerable. I always got away. And he's still alive and he's still in prison, and I still participate in his parole hearings.
I imagine.
Yes, with her family. And so
Yeah.
we've developed really, and so it didn't recur to me, like I didn't, because I never liked watching the news. It freaked me out. I, like I said, no crime shows, nothing like that. But all of a sudden, I'm watching these trials and I'm being exposed to all kinds of things that I never wanted to be exposed to. And I
Yeah.
realized that it was a way for me to kind of ride along with justice, like to feel good about other people who were getting just a little measure of justice, because real justice would be that the crime never happened, or the person is still with us, or when we're talking about murder or whatever, or they're not maimed for life or whatever the crime
Right.
was. But now I will say I generally will shy away from anything that's got too much you know gory detail. A lot of times I will skip over in the trial, I'll skip over the testimony of the doctors and that kind of thing, just because I can't. But that's
Well, and
kind
on top of that, they use such big terms in that
of
it kind of like goes
well,
right over
actually,
my head.
the trial watching is so educational. It's so for over the years, I've thought about, because I was going to go to law school. We talked about this offline, but I thought about, well, just for fun, getting a law degree. And there's no way I'm going to practice law, and I'm certainly not going to practice criminal law. No way,
Right.
right? But how interesting would it be just to get that law degree? And so what I find with the trials is it's very educational. And then when you watch trial after trial after trial, not many trials, you're starting to speak in legal jargon and you're understanding. So yeah, a lot of people on my channel think, are you a lawyer? And it's like, oh God, no. No.
Well, and I said that before we recorded, I had to ask what you did because I was like, for some reason, it just kept sticking in my mind that with everything that you talk about, that she has either paralegal or legal assistant or something like that. But so yeah, I was in that group.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess because when you watch enough trials, you're starting to, use words like motion and continuance and things like this, like as if it's part of daily life. But and I have friends who are lawyers and things like that, so it's not like I can ask questions too offline. I just finished a show on my channel. I was invited by a lawyer, a YouTube lawyer, Judy. She's just the sweetest thing on the planet. Judy's a YouTube lawyer. Look her up. She's great. And then she had a law professor on, and me. And so I
Yeah.
call myself Dawn Dacquisto, potential juror, because because I like to look at trials as if, even if I know some of the background, right? I will look at them and I try to be fair. I just try to be fair, and I try to take both sides of the argument in. Like, okay,
Right.
well, that's fair. And I'm not like on there. There's a lot of people on YouTube who are like, they hate all defense attorneys because they're, defending criminals. And I used to be that way. But anyway, so that's kind of my story. The dude that happened, this dude is still alive in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a life, but you can't be without parole. And every state
Life
is
without
different.
patrol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Iowa's the same way.
he gets parole, so he gets to go up and say, yeah, I want to get out for these reasons. Yeah, so it's an interesting process. And for many years, I wasn't involved in it at all. I wasn't even, like, it was blocked out of my memories until it kind of came back. But yeah,
Right.
so it's been
Right.
a long
Um,
process.
yeah. So that kind of brings up the question: have you ever been part of a jury?
I have been asked many times and never been. I've always gotten out of it for, I hate the word gotten out of it, but for medical reasons. I usually
Right.
can't. Yeah, I would kind of
I've
like
been in the
to.
jury pool twice, and I got
Yes.
selected one time.
Yeah. What
it,
kind of a
it
trial?
wasn't a it was a bigger trial than what we thought it was going to be, but it was just basically a meth trial.
Mm.
There was a lady that kind of was like a small town kingpin type deal where
Oh,
she was
wow.
supplying stuff. When we got all the details, she was like, they would bring her the pseudoephedrine and she would like make it and give it out and stuff like that.
Wow.
So but it took about a week, maybe 4 days. First part was just they do the voir dire and all
Mhm.
that stuff, and then they got us in, and they had a few witnesses that they brought on and stuff, and it was kind of for me personally. I don't know about the rest of them. This was 15 years ago.
Mm.
I don't know about the rest of the jury or anything. I mean, we ended up on a agreement on everything. It was unanimous across the board, but for me, it was a toss up. And then the lady took the stand, and it kind of just blew the whole thing out of the water for me
Oh, the
because,
defendant did? The defendant took the
yeah,
stand?
yeah,
Okay.
she her husband at the time got on the stand was saying, well, I don't remember this person and I don't know this person, and but this is what happened here and this is what happened here. And then the defendant got on the stand and goes, oh, well, he just didn't remember this, or she was like battling what her husband was saying and battling what these other people were saying and trying to put a spin on it. Oh yeah, he knew this, and he doesn't remember it. And it's like, okay, you're just trying to cover your bases now. This isn't, you're trying to give somebody else's testimony instead of your own. And then
Mm.
when we got into the room to do the deliberation and we started putting like figures together, you know
Mhm.
how with the cold medicines that you have to like give your ID and all that stuff
Right. Mhm.
for the pseudoephedrine, the people, and there were like two or three people in her that it all corresponded around the same time. They were getting it all together at the same time, and it all came because her husband was a farmer, so he was getting the ammonia, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
all happening around the time that he was getting the tanks of ammonia.
Oh, wow.
So when we were putting all that together, it's like, okay, and then what she was saying on the stand to try to refute her own uh witnesses, it's like, okay, this is and so
So she
yeah,
kinda buried herself.
in at least in my mind, she buried herself, and then obviously we all found her guilty, and it was
Mhm.
unanimous and all that. So
Mhm.
I
Wow.
don't know what the sentencing was because we weren't a part of that, but
Mhm.
she was found guilty. So, but
Yeah.
that was the only. Now I was in the jury pool for another trial, and I was damn glad I didn't get part of that one because I wanted
Mm.
nothing to do with it. It was a cold case file,
Ooh.
and it was a rape and murder from the
Mm.
70s.
Oh, wow.
And when we crossed paths, because the two juries were going on basically at the same time, or not the same time, they just ended their one trial and we were coming in for the other. So there was some intermingling between some of the jurors, the two jury pools. I probably shouldn't. Well, it's been 15 years.
Yeah, you're
The
good.
statute of limitations is out of there, but there was some intermingling, and we found out that they were almost in physical fights during their deliberations
Wow.
because it was
So, like,
getting
12
so.
Angry Men or 12 Angry Jurors type of thing?
Yeah, they had,
Wow.
and of course you had the people that, oh well, she deserved it because she was wearing this and
Oh
she was one
god.
of them hotsy totsies, and
Oh my god.
and stuff like that. So that jury trial went to hung jury. I don't
Mm.
remember whatever happened afterwards, but I was just
Mhm.
glad I wasn't part of that because there's no way I'd have been able to handle because I'm one of those that, yeah, I know I'm out of shape, I'm getting older and all that stuff, but you don't poke me and you don't get in my face. If I believe something,
Mhm.
unless you can give me the proof to show that I'm wrong,
Mhm.
then don't sit there and I'm also one of those that I don't want to base everything off of hearsay.
Mhm.
Well, like I said, there were rumors that they were going through and saying, "Oh, well, I knew this girl when she was working down at this store, and she was a whore and stuff like that." And it's like, No, that doesn't mean jack shit. That,
Mhm.
nobody deserves to have what happened to her. So, I wouldn't have been able to sit in that jury too long
Yeah,
if that conversation was going on.
right. Yeah, I would have a hard
And
time with that too.
but
I
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's kind of a blessing that I've never been on a jury.
There's some of them that, and I was selected. Well, I wasn't selected, but I got my notification for one a few years ago, but we never got called because it was during COVID, so they were trying to really limit
Mm,
the actual jury trials that they were having at the
yes,
time. But, like, it's hard to want to put somebody away or not, not put somebody away, but it's a little easier to go into a jury when you know it's something like drunken driving
sure,
or a drug case or something like that, because there's not a life on the line. You're not sending somebody to death. You're not sending somebody away for life without parole. You're not doing that. They're going to get, if they're found guilty, they're going to get time, but it's not like killer time or,
right,
something like that. So,
right.
not that I want to be back on a jury because that was just a pain in the ass to deal with. But
I bet I would
now,
be. Yeah. Mhm,
yeah, so I was just going to say the reason why I kind of will find myself leaning towards like true crime stuff is just because I've always been interested in like when I was a kid, I loved Sherlock Holmes. Well, I mean, I still love
mhm,
Sherlock Holmes.
mhm.
So I always loved the investigation portions of things.
I'm a cumber bitch, so
Yeah, and his is one of the best Sherlock
it's
Holmeses
so
that
good.
ever. I
Yeah.
loved it. I wish they would finally do another season, but it doesn't ever look like they're ever
No.
going to do one.
Mm.
But I have the books. I even have some of the books
So,
that were written by
what's his name?
newer authors, but still with the same
Oh,
characters and stuff like that.
okay.
And I just always loved the investigation part of things.
Mm.
And even when I was a kid, I said I wanted to be a lawyer, but then my dad said, "Well, I don't want my kid, uh, defending the likes of, a murderer or something like that." So that kind of blew that whole thought
Mm,
process out of me.
mm.
So,
So you would have been a criminal lawyer.
well, I know at the time I just didn't know what I wanted to be.
Sure.
I just wanted something in the law. I didn't know if it was going to be criminal. I don't know if it was going to be. I didn't want to do like tax stuff because I was never good at math. So I think that's one of the big requirements for being in like tax law and stuff like that.
Right.
But so I love the investigate, but now I get to the point where I get angry when I listen to these true crime things because you hear about how the law enforcement didn't do this or they didn't do that. And it's like, that's the first thing I would have done. Or I
Mm.
listened to one of the pods, and that's why we drink. And they did an episode a couple weeks ago where it was in Minnesota and there was a young indigenous girl who she went out. She told her parents or told her mom that she was going to go out to the movies with some friends. Then, and her mom had to go to work. And like in the middle of her mom's shift, she gets a call from the girl and she's like crying and, whatever, and, wanting her mom to come get her and stuff like that. So she goes home and there's like a bunch of kids in the house and, they've been drinking and all this other stuff. And she tried to go get her daughter out of this one room and these kids letting her go into the room. And so now I have to say this was one mistake on the mothers that I probably, if it had to be, it would have been done different. She went outside to call the cops.
Oh.
And when she came back in, all the kids were gone and they were running out the back door and her daughter wasn't in there. And nobody's seen the daughter since.
Oh my God.
And well, when the cop showed up, they immediately said, "Well, she's a runaway." And so they did no investigation or anything on it.
Mm.
And then like a week later, the cop calls again and says, "Well, has she shown up?" And the mom's like, "No, are you guys doing anything?" "Oh, well, I'll call you in a week." And if she hasn't showed up,
Wow.
then we'll see. So, I get really angry when I hear that stuff because, like,
Wow.
this is what law enforcement is supposed to be for.
Oh, tell me about it. No, don't get me started on live. That's another
I
conversation.
know that can be a whole new episode. Now,
Yes.
I know you've been kind of, you do your trial watching and you've been kind of getting into, or you've been following some of the more recent ones. Well, I didn't watch the trial, but I know the story of one of the ones that you were really getting into. So I kind of want to bring that one up, and that's the Delphi case.
Oh,
So
yes.
we kind of had a discussion one time through your chat during one of your podcast episodes that you were kind of not sure about the guy that is sitting in jail because of it.
Right.
And I leaned the opposite way, where even though I didn't watch a trial, I followed along the other things. I start to wonder
Mm,
if they actually did get I think they got the guy that possibly, because I mean, there were supposedly people that put him in that area during that time. They were able to match some things up to him, but
mhm.
uh, how deep do you get into these trial watches? Do you actually go through and uh, if they uh, do you go into like case files and stuff like that, or do you go through
Everything that's
just the
publicly
TV?
available, everything. And that's Richard Allen you're talking about, and
Yes.
he was prosecuted, he was convicted, he was found guilty by a jury of his peers. Well, a lot of people think still think he's innocent because they believe he was coerced into this confession. He was put into solitary confinement. He was treated to inhumane conditions. He still probably is. And he went kind of bananas from all appearances. And so when he finally said, yeah, to his wife, I guess over the phone, I did it. They don't, a lot of people are like, yeah, he just said that. He doesn't know what he's saying anymore because you've seen him. He's like drooling. He's lost 1,000,000 pounds. So I will watch every single hearing, read every motion, every response that's publicly available. Some trials,
Right.
some cases, they won't make them as publicly available. Just kind of depends. I will watch, and I mostly only watch lawyers on YouTube. I don't
Okay.
watch because I want to know, like, really what's going to happen.
Factual.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's going to happen, like what's the layout, because there's a whole, like, it's just like any business, there's a whole different playing field, right?
Right.
Different terminology. And so, and there's some lawyers that are going to give it to you one way or the other way. With Delphi, Richard Allen, which is the murder of two young girls, for anyone who doesn't know, this one was not, it was not, a lot of things were kept secret by the judge. And so it wasn't as open. And
Yeah.
so that also will breed a lot more suspicion
Right.
from people who are used to being able to read everything from FOIA requests and whatnot. And so there's a lot of that too. But I followed a couple of lawyers who actually, because it wasn't being live streamed,
Yeah.
went to the trial. There were a lot of lawyers all over the country attending that trial, taking off of work for, I don't know, a month or two, whatever it was. I can't remember how much time the trial
It
was
was a
anymore.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while. And we're in that courtroom because they were concerned about what was going on.
Yeah.
So when you see that kind of thing, Karen Reed's another one, which
I
just
haven't
happened.
been up to date on that one
Oh
yet.
my God.
See, I'm the other way. I don't watch the trials. I'll catch it when one of my favorite podcasts do it, and
Gotcha.
then I'll.
Well, Karen Reed was all a lot about law enforcement being very corrupt, and a lot of police, because of since that trial, have been fired.
Yeah.
And they're involved with other trials that are really big in that area, that they got their fingerprints on there, that they might have affected those trials, so from justice being done. So in any case, Delphi was pretty heartbreaking, um, and because he was found guilty, and it was just really not clear, it was really not clear what was really going on there. Now, Richard Allen, in that case, he told police that he was there.
Yeah.
he told police, and then they like forgot about it for 5 years and then went back
Yeah.
and questioned him. And so, yeah.
Something about they had him in the file as they like there was a file and it had a note on there that said cleared
Clear.
or talked
Right.
to or whatever,
Mhm.
and they had a volunteer in there that was doing like file sorting or something, and she
You found
found it
him.
and went through it, and uh so that kind of brought him back on the scope.
Right.
But I do agree that it sounds like to me that there wasn't a lot of things that they released. What they did release did seem a bit damning to
Sure. Of course.
against him. I know he said he was in the area, but I know they said that there was also another set of like not like as super young as the two girls were, but like teenage or upper teenage girls that said that he was there.
Oh, they saw him. I mean, he never denied. I mean, I think they probably said, anybody who was there, let us know, type of
Yeah,
thing. The problem is there was a convicted sex offender there, and there
right.
was his son, and the father was like burning things, and like nobody. I mean, there were a lot of people that didn't appear to have been, and one of the persons is dead now, and a lot of people that weren't investigated to the extent they. So here again, it comes back to law enforcement doing that. It's
Yeah.
a tiny little town, so you don't like to point fingers, but it's like, what is going on here? Because that would be like more likely the person
And
you'd
I
want to
think they
investigate.
said, at least what I got from the one podcast that I listened to recently, that they there was a connection between the family and Richard Allen, that he worked at a CVS that the grandmother frequented.
Everybody did. It was a tiny town,
Right,
and
but
the
I mean
girls
that
too. The girls
they
too.
she knew him, and
Yep.
not like bosom buddies or anything like that, but
Right.
they had a working knowledge of each other. And typical law enforcement thing is, if there's a connection in any way, we're going to follow that line no matter what.
Well, the
But they
problem is the girls were hooking up with this guy.
right, yeah,
His
what one you're
father.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So that was a
they
definite connection. Like they were like having secret, I don't know, dates or whatever, and they were meeting him there. And I
yeah.
was like, that would
So
be a
now the
little
way
bit
they put it
more.
on the podcast was that she had been communicating with a known catfish, which the
Yep.
catfish is a term that if anybody doesn't know what catfish is nowadays, it's where you pretend to be somebody else online.
Hmm.
But they said that there was no that there was communications, but there was never anything to show that they were going to meet up. That's how it was put, the way I heard it. Now, like I said, I haven't deep dived like
Right, right,
you
right.
have.
But he ended up being there as well as his father. And
Okay.
his father ended up like burning things, and he picked his father up, and he actually pointed the finger at his father.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very convoluted. So it's just, with all of that, and then you have what appears to be a coerced confession by somebody who really doesn't. I mean,
Do
it's
you
really
think
sad. It's really
Do you
sad.
think maybe the defense counsel kind of hurt him more in a way than tried to help him? Because it sounded like they were trying to. Because I do know from parts of what I heard, and then from what I heard of the podcast, they were trying to put it off as like a cult ritual death
Oh,
or
that.
something like
Right, right,
that.
right, right. Um, that could have been, yeah, like too much of a distraction.
Right. Instead of,
I don't
focusing
know
in
that.
on the two that you're talking about, it sounded like they were trying to bring this cult up, and that they were
Right, right,
using,
right.
they
Well, but
even
that
said that
guy
there were,
was involved in that too.
yeah, okay.
So not the who did the false, not the guy who was convicted, Richard Allen, but I forgot the other guy's name, but he's still in prison, I think, as far as I know, for other crimes.
Yeah.
So it could have. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I do know that his lawyers are still out there saying he's innocent. We believe this.
Right.
We're disappointed. A lot of defense attorneys will do that, but they're pretty sincere. And then we've got like the prosecutor's podcast, who are like, oh no, he's guilty, So I listen usually. Oftentimes, I'll listen to multiple sides because I'm trying not to be just like one way or the other, trying to keep an
Right.
open mind. But in this
I
one, it's
just,
hard because if you can't see the trial, you can't see the people's faces when they're
yeah.
testifying. It's really hard. So
Now,
I
see, I
won't I
didn't know
won't
the,
say that I feel one way or the other, but I do say on that one, I feel really sad, and I
and
just
I
don't
didn't
have
know that
sympathy.
the guy and his dad were there.
Yep,
I had heard that they had been communicating,
yep.
but there was no actual meetups planned or they were going to get together or anything like that. So yeah, that does kind of,
Well,
throw in there.
supposedly the son picked the father up in that area. The father was burning something. I honestly, it feels like 100 years ago, so I might not have this right, but it's very suspicious with the.
And the only other thing that I knew about Richard Allen is they were, and I will fully admit, I'm not, being that I am a gun guy and I do know some things about
Yes,
how arms work and all that. I'm
yes,
still not sure how they were able to link that 40 caliber bullet that was unfired
right.
to
To
his
his gun,
gun.
right,
I do understand the possibility of if it had been fired, but
right.
I'm not sure because I mean, you go into one of the other rooms and I've got two 40 caliber handguns in there with boxes of different ammunition all over the
Right,
place, and I guarantee you that somebody else has got this matching ammo in another
right,
house,
right.
distance away. So if it's an unfired round, he could have been out there target shooting for all I know. Because
Exactly.
me being a
Or
country kid myself,
yeah.
I can drive like 5 miles out of town and there's a public hunting area that I can go set up a target. And as
Mhm,
long as there's nobody behind it, I can start firing away and target shoot out there.
mhm.
So who's to say that he didn't go out there to fire a new pistol that he had just got and he dropped a round out there? Even if
Or
they
and I don't
couldn't
even
match
think
it.
they had, like, fingerprints on it or
No,
anything.
they tried to say that they were able to match the unspent round
Right.
to
To
his
his gun.
gun, and
Right.
I'm still not sure how that would have linked up because the only
Exactly.
markings that it would have, and I don't, honestly, even though we're not going to show video or anything, I don't have one of mine handy to be able to pop a magazine out of it. But there's
Mhm,
a magazine, and when you jam the round down into the magazine, that's the only time you're going to get any marks off of it.
mhm. Right. Right.
Well, the magazines they're very minute differences between the magazines in the same guns
Mhm,
because they're all basically pressed the same way.
mhm.
So to be able to say that bullet, unspent bullet, came out of that gun, that didn't make sense to
It's
me.
not certain. Right, exactly, but this shows the power of the government, that you put somebody on trial, you arrest them, and you charge them with murder of 2 little girls, and you stick them in front of a jury in a tiny town. And I do believe they brought jury in from a larger town outside of,
I think
obviously,
so.
outside of Delphi, but I can't remember what town it was, but definitely didn't just have Delphi folks trying that or as jurors on that case. But nevertheless, he's sitting there, and a lot of jurors, it's like you're 90% there.
Yeah.
Prosecutions, the success rate, the guilty rate is so high. It is so hard to get a not guilty.
Yep.
And then when you're talking about 2 little girls, it's just really rough. And so I just don't have certainty. I can't say. I know a lot of people are like, no, he's innocent. I just don't know because I didn't see the trial. I wasn't,
Right.
but I watched as much as I could. I read as much as I could. I thought the judge was just gross.
And see, I
Um,
had the same thought with a different case
hmm.
to kind of jump ahead or jump to a different one.
Go ahead, jump.
The Kyle Rittenhouse stuff.
Oh yeah, a
I
lot of
thought the
people didn't like
judge was siding more with the defense
it. Hmm.
throughout the whole thing. And now this is going to make a lot of people mad, and I understand how it sounds and all that stuff. and I do not like this kid one bit. He should have just hidden a hole, and now he's trying to ride Trump coattails. And
Oh yeah.
I'm this is not me sticking up for him one at all.
Right.
He should have never been in that situation. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is, if he went into that situation, he should have got himself out of that situation quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a crowd of people throwing shit at me, threatening my life, and they, as far as I know, they said that there was a guy there that had a handgun that pulled it on him, I would be trying to defend myself also. But that, like I said, that doesn't mean anything because he put himself in that situation.
Sure, sure. I didn't watch that trial. I know the judge though, because he was the same judge in a trial that I did watch,
Oh,
which is
really?
wild. It was a retrial of an old case in Kenosha,
Yeah.
Wisconsin. And this guy was found guilty, and he had one of the rare appeals that was like after 20 some years, he was given a new trial. So I watched the retrial. I think I watched the old trial too. I think they played it. So, but it
Yeah.
was that same judge anyway. But House, yeah, he's a despicable little kid.
He
But I
is.
didn't watch
And like
the
I said,
trial, and I couldn't watch the trial. I just couldn't. I just couldn't
well,
watch
and
it.
like I said, I don't want people to think that I'm trying to defend him in any
Oh,
way.
I'm sure not. And I did hear some lawyers talk about it, and they didn't prove that case. And
Right.
anybody who thinks that somebody should be found guilty just because they know they're guilty, but the case wasn't proven, they're
Right.
wrong. You need that check and balance in government, because you sit there and you're charged with a serious crime, and you're looking at serious time in prison,
Yep.
taking your life or half of your life away. No, you need the government to prove their case.
Yep.
So I didn't watch it, but from what I gathered, the jury came to the right decision.
Right. And but my whole point of the thing was is that judge
Mhm.
seemed to
Oh yeah, I saw that.
side with the defense a little bit
Yes,
more often than
the little bits that I
what he
saw.
should have done.
Yes,
So
yes,
that was more of the point I was getting. I don't know why I
yes.
went on that long diatribe
No,
of,
no, no,
but
it's okay. Well, that brings me to Karen Reed, and I'll make Karen Reed short. But I think everybody in this country should watch the entire Karen Reed trial. Even though it's over, you can replay it.
you know,
Karen Reed, I'll make it as quick as I can. So Karen Reed was is this was in outside of Boston in Canton, Massachusetts.
okay,
She's like almost 50 now, I think. She's a woman, youngish woman, dating a Boston cop. They went out with a bunch of cop friends in Boston, as one does, I guess, and they drank and drank and drank and drank and drank, as you
as
would
they
when
do in
you live in
Boston.
Boston. I mean, these people, most of the cops were in New York for the day at another cop's funeral, so they were drinking literally for 24 hours.
Yeah,
And they all ended up at one of the cops' house. Karen Reed drops her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, at the door to be like, what's going on with this party? Should we go in? Should we not go in? He's just going to check it out. And she's like waiting for him to text. She's getting pissed. He never texts her. They were like in a 2-year relationship, already a little bit on the rocks anyway. And she takes off. She goes back to his house, and she's like, where are you, you pervert? Leaving him all these nasty messages. And the next day, she wakes up at like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. Anyway, she wakes up in the middle of the night and he's not there. And she's like, well, and that is not like him. Bottom line, he's dead, looks to be beaten to pulverized and
wow,
dog bitten on the front lawn in the snow, because then a blizzard is starting that morning, of this cop's house where she left him. And the cops are accusing her of running him over with their car. Well, excuse me, but she had this enormous 6,000 pound, like brand new Lexus that has all this data that they can gather. There's no
yeah,
evidence that there was a car crash. There was no evidence that she hit somebody. There was no evidence of anything. There was no evidence. There was no dent on the car.
I was going to
Like,
say, with as plastic as cars are anymore, there would have been some kind of damage
right.
to it.
She had a broken taillight, but there was a video of her pulling out to go look for him at like whatever time and hit his car parked there. What in the taillight? Well, it appeared like from all appearances that the cops like broke the taillight out a little bit more and took like a broken drinking glass and threw it at it and some really lame stuff, but there was no dents. Anyway, she got found. They had a hung jury. And so she had a retry and she ended up getting some of the best, like Alan Jackson out of LA here, one of the best defense attorneys around, millions of dollars. He ended up pro bono because they just believed in the case. Anyway, they finally got her off. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. They charged her with everything: second degree murder, manslaughter, leaving the scene of an accident, all this stuff. They were just all these lesser includeds.
Right.
Not guilty on all of it. They finally, because just as a tactical maneuver, the defense, because they had been through a trial before and there happened to be a lawyer on the jury, she advised them on the second trial, on the retrial, and they put in with her advice a DUI. So the
Really?
jury, yeah, even though that wasn't proven, and they're like, yeah, DUI. It was like a $6 million DUI charge. It cost that Canton, Massachusetts money, so much money, and the town is upset because they're like, why are you charging this woman? Anyway, the people that killed her, probably Boston cops, aren't being investigated. It'll be never ever investigated. It's just
No,
a big
the
sideshow, in my
the
opinion.
problem, right? The problem with law enforcement. Well, I mean, there's a lot of problems, like we said. There, we can
Yeah.
have a whole new, but
Hmm.
they basically are a brotherhood,
Hmm.
and they. There's a YouTuber that I'm uh, acquaintances with, and we have conversations and stuff like that. I've had him on the pod before, and when I first started watching him and all that, he said it, and it kind of made sense. There's no such thing as a good cop,
Mm.
and the reason he says that is because if a good cop will let a bad cop do what a bad cop does and not turn them over,
Right.
then that makes him a bad cop.
Bad cop. Yes. Yes.
And that's the kind of situation that probably
Mhm.
what happened was that cop knew too much. The guys inside knew he knew too much, and they just had to get him out of there. And she was
Yes,
going to play
because there
scapegoat.
are other cases in that same police precinct of, oh, some, I'm not even going to mention them on here, some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
Some really bad stuff. And there's a young lady who's dead who was theoretically pregnant with one of the cops' kid, like started when she was like 11. I mean, it's bad. And maybe he knew about that. He seemed to be a really nice guy. This one, John O'Keefe, who was killed, he his sister passed away from cancer. Had two little kids. He had a mom and dad and brother who had kids and stuff,
Right.
and he was a single guy. And then the sister's husband passed away like 6 months later.
Oh,
So
really?
these kids are orphans. John O'Keefe, single guy, takes over, adopts these kids. So not only, I mean, his whole family lost John O'Keefe, Karen did, his girlfriend, but these kids have now lost their parents and their next parent. Like, oh my God, you couldn't be more sad. But anyway, it was a big trial. A lot of police officers testifying. You just would be blown away. I mean, you got to see it to believe it because you could
Right.
just see their line. Like, it's like it was a joke to them. It was so in your face, you wouldn't even believe it. You have to see it. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it.
That's
So in your
kind of
face, like, hey, we're lying. I mean, it was
kind
so
of to jump
bad.
back to what I was talking about with the jury that I was on. We
Oh,
went in there not wanting to be on the cop's side, but because
Oh,
she went through and started like hurting her own case, it was like,
mhm.
we've got to go with it, because
Yeah,
now she's calling her own witnesses a liar, and
right.
he's trying. So
They're trying to help you.
um yeah, but
Yeah, that's why you don't testify in your own defense ever, because your ego
or if you
takes
do, don't sit there and try to refute your own witnesses.
the
You
people
can try to refute you can refute the
they're trying to help
prosecution,
you.
but don't refute your own witnesses.
Right.
um
Yeah, it's
so I know I wanted to leave a little bit of time open, and we've got probably 15 minutes here,
okay.
or however long it takes. But I kind of wanted to leave this portion open to talk about any cases that might be
Right.
local,
Mhm.
or that you don't. Because honestly, in the small town that I live in, there's two local cases that I am surprised, like a podcast like Small Town Murder hasn't done,
Oh,
or
really?
yeah,
Okay.
because there's one specifically that I remember that happened in high school,
Mm.
that, or when I was in high school, that just it I know what the scuttlebutt is, because I'm in the town that it happened, and I know the rumors and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then the other one, I know there's probably been a ton more. I will
Yeah.
say that I've always heard, I've never been able to find the actual episode, but I heard that Paul Harvey said that Southeast Iowa is, like, per capita, the murder capital of the world, or of the United States.
Wow.
And there, if you actually go on and look at, like, when they talk about worst places in Iowa to live, they talk about this area specifically
Sorry.
because of the crime and the unsolved murders and stuff like that.
Mm.
And so, but before I get into mine, is there any of them that you can think of that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So, I have a YouTube channel, and I open that YouTube channel to randomly discuss my rantings about trials, and I also am really into watching police interrogation videos and body cam. I mean,
Hey, that's how I kind of keep my true crime stuff going. Is I'll be sitting at work and I'll have like a trial, like the court cases going on, and I love Judge Simpson out of Michigan,
oh,
and
yeah.
Judge Fleischer out of Texas. I love
Mhm.
listening to those guys because they seem to actually be caring judges.
Aw, yeah.
And
That's
so I
great.
love.
I love that. On YouTube, you can, like, subscribe to local judges, not local, but judges' channels if they have them, and it's
Yeah,
just great. But I'm not like a full-time YouTuber. I'm not even a part-time YouTuber. I just go on when I feel like it. Like,
hobbies. That's what
that's
we
my
call them, hobbies.
hobby. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like, because people are like, "Oh, you could have so many followers," and, oh, it's like, you know what?
If it
I
was that
love
easy, I would have it by
love
now with as much work as me and Mike have put into it.
well, I love my audience. I love interacting with them, but, like, if I need to take 6 months to a year off, I'm going to do it. I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, I gotta create content."
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lawyer in Chicago. He's kind of funny. Are you familiar with the
Oh, is
term?
that Mike's Laws?
Yes!
Yeah, I've seen some of his
He's
stuff. Yeah.
fun. He's fun. Okay, so local trial. So my channel, the reason I brought up my channel is because I am going to soon be replaying the preliminary hearing for a case right here where I live. And it's California versus Larry Millete, or Millette, but it's Millete technically. It's
Okay.
Milette. Oh God! So this is a cool part about watching all these trials, because you learn all different state laws, all the different jurisdictions. It's kind of interesting. So in California, what they do is before they admit a case to trial, every state's a little bit different, but California brings it to the next level. They basically have a mini trial.
Yeah.
And so when we say preliminary hearing in California, it's not just, okay, the judge saying, do you have all your evidence? Do you have all your witnesses? Blah, blah, blah. What are your witnesses going to be? Any argument about that? this is like a mini trial, so it can go on for days if it's a big case. So this
Yep.
is Larry Bellette. So okay, so the reason I took interest in this case because of my past that I told you about. When I was a kid, when this guy tried to get me, and he got the other gal, he little girl, she was only 7, she was missing for a
Yep.
couple of days, right? And so when she was missing, the whole city was like involved in a search, right? So like 1,000 people back in the day. Of course, I was too little to participate, but I knew it was going on,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was worried. I was worried because I had a feeling it was the guy. I was like, was it? And because there aren't that many people out there who would do something like that. I mean, my mother, the reason I'm yelling is my mom's like, oh, it's not the same one. You know, she's like trying to make me feel better, but it's like, this isn't making me feel better. Anyway, it was the same guy. So there's this big search party. So anytime in the sad and not rare enough occasion where there's a crime and you hear there's a search party looking for a young lady, usually it gets my attention. It brings all those things back.
Yeah.
Like, so it gets my attention more than almost any other thing. And so a few years ago, there was such a thing. And they were looking for this mom in her 30s of two, I believe she has 2 children, Maya Millete. And they still haven't found her.
Yeah.
And they had search parties and it was kind of on the news. It was sort of like in there. But I don't even know. I mean, I was watching trials by then, but I wasn't. Again, the local news scares me. So this is the first time. Yeah, this is the first time I'm really going to pay attention to something local, and I'm actually going to attend the trial. I'm
Yeah.
actually going to attend. But so on my channel, I'm going to replay the preliminary hearing, which lays out the entire case and all the people that are involved and
Huh.
the victims, the survivors, the people, the suspects, the whatnot. It's just, but what I have found watching cases, watching trials is it's like that's why I don't bother with Netflix or television because it's more entertaining. It's more interesting. Like you wouldn't believe these characters that come up
Yeah.
and like the one I was telling you about the professor in Florida, that the law professor, there were his ex-wife, his ex-wife's brother, his ex-wife's mother, and 3 murderers that they hired. So
Oh
each
wow.
trial, right, is a different time. Now the ex-wife hasn't been even arrested yet, but she's been named as a co-conspirator. It's all about her. That's what the show that I was just doing before this show was all about. But you get to know all these witnesses, like the girlfriends of the like the girlfriends of the murder. You know, it's just like, and they come and they've got their little outfits and they have their little ways about them, and you just really get to know them well. It's the same thing with this preliminary hearing that I'm going to start rolling soon, which is the case against Larry Millette, which has been postponed like multiple times. One of the reasons the preliminary hearing is so good, and not just to get familiar with the case, because I think it needs more attention, but because the the lawyer of Larry Millette, who is no longer on the case, is just like you have to see it to believe it. How bad she I'm sure she's good at some things, but she isn't a criminal lawyer. And
And
she's
that's amazing when you hear that stuff. Like I said, I'll have like Judge Simpson's court on or Judge Fleischer's court on. And
hmm
the one thing that it always boggles my mind
hmm
is when I was in college, we had to take speech courses. You
hmm
know, it was mandated and all that stuff.
sure.
Well, the first thing that they teach you in speech is don't use and don't
Right.
stammer like that. And you'll
Word
sit there and
whispers.
watch these courts and you'll listen to
hmm
the lawyers, and it's just like a constant. It's like, wow, you go to school for 8 years and you can't, come up with a thought
Mm.
and a speech that doesn't have these. And somebody yelled at me one time when I posted that in a whatchamacallit, the
Chat.
comments
Yeah.
at the bottom
Yeah.
of the video. Well, in one of my higher speech classes, that's the way when you're thinking of something, you take a breath, you
Mhm.
take a pause,
Mhm.
you, but when you sit there and you your way through stuff, and I'm bad at it. I try to do
Oh,
my
we
best
do
through,
it. We all do it. Sure.
but I'm also not getting paid
A
$300 an
million.
hour. And
Right.
my client's life isn't hanging in the balance,
Right.
and
Right.
stuff like that, so
Mhm.
I can get away with it. But when you're constantly doing that, it doesn't sound
Oh, it bothers me a
professional.
lot. It bothers me a lot. I did a video where I was actually reading. I prepared everything, but I've been really tired lately. I'm on antibiotics and whatnot. That's my excuse. And I played it back and I'm like, oh my God. I was just like, oh. And I'm like, I'm reading. How could I have done that? And I wrote in the comments, I'm so sorry, everyone, about all the ums and the ahs. Because I'm pretty good at not doing that usually. And I had some really nice comments like, "Oh, it was so great. You did a great job." And I was like, "Oh," but still, I am very critical of that. But this wasn't
And
her. No, this woman, you just, I'll send you some clips. Like, I'll send you some. It was so bad. I mean, the judge was like, "Ma'am, you're just." I'm not going to give it away, but
was it
it was on
Amber
my.
Heard, Johnny Depp level bad with that, with the
Oh,
Amber Heard
much worse. No, 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 no. You don't understand. This woman didn't belong in a courtroom. It was and she's there. Like this is probably one of the biggest trials in this $4 million, at 4 million, 4 million population city that I live in. So it's not a
wow.
small town. And yeah, she was totally unqualified. Bless her heart. Bless her heart. She just didn't know what she was doing. I mean, and it's kind of funny because I mean, yeah, like who am I to criticize, right? She's the lawyer, but you see
Right.
enough trials and you see really good lawyers, and you're like, oh no, no. And when the judge is telling you, ma'am, this is a preliminary hearing, we don't do this
Yeah.
here, and I'm thinking that it's like, okay, so yeah. Anyway, it's going to be a really. I'm quite this guy. Okay, so this Larry Milletti, the husband, took his wife's life and hid her somewhere.
Okay.
Body hasn't been found. Prior to doing this, like the stories, you can't make this stuff up. He hired like fortune tellers, and then he hired like people to put spells on her. They're gonna they're gonna be testifying. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. And then they finally arrest a guy. Well, the neighbors have video of him burning like this huge bonfire in the yard, like massive. And of course, he wasn't arrested then, but they have it on video. Then him pulling up, backing up to the garage, pulling like a big body sized thing and putting it into the car. It's all on video.
Yeah.
And right. And then what else did he do? And it's just so sad. I mean, I'm kind of making fun of it, but because I hate to be like that, because I really feel for his, like her
I
family.
was just before we happened to get on, I was talking about something on Reddit where they said the question was, what podcast did you stop listening to, and why? And I said one of them was Crime Junkie, and I said
Mm,
the reason why I stopped listening to it was because it seemed so scripted.
right.
There was no like real back and forth between the two of them. It was like a script, and they were just reading from the script, to the point
Mhm,
that even the shock value wasn't shocking, because you could tell she was just reading the shock value off the script. And and somebody came back, well, I stopped listening to it because they would insert personal stories, and they were trying
mhm.
to put jokes in there. It's like, but that's why I like listening to some podcasts, because if you're doing nothing but throwing this stuff out there, all it is going to make you depressed. They're
True.
trying to tell a story while also keeping you engaged.
True. Mhm.
And, you know, you know it just as well as I do from podcasts. You can have a script, but you don't want to go by the script. You want to
Right.
have the interaction between you and your
Right.
podcast partner,
Mhm.
and you can have these notes to go off of. But what makes the podcast is the back and forth between the two people. So if that means, like the stories that I'll get into here in a couple minutes, I have kind of personal connections with the two things that happened here
Oh,
in the
man.
town that
Yeah.
I live in.
Mhm.
And so, of course, I'm going to insert, said stories in there because,
Right.
that happens. Well, so that happened on and it wasn't like a big argument or anything. It was just a back and forth
Mhm.
on why we don't listen to something. And it's like, okay, but I would rather have them. Like I said, one of the podcasts that I've listened to since day one was, and that's why we drink, with M. Schultz and Christine Schaefer, and that's what they do for the most part, is just make jokes and back and forth. But they're good about not making light of the stuff that's happening.
Right.
It's more the banter back and forth to not make it so depressing while they're, because if you're hearing it and you're feeling depressed,
Mhm.
think about what's going on in the person who's telling you the story, because they
Mhm.
had to do the research on it. They had
Yeah.
to get into the details on everything.
Right.
So they're
Yeah.
trying to keep themselves sane while also keeping you sane while listening to the story.
Right. It's not that easy. I just did a review about the last thing I'm gonna mention is a trial in Kentucky that I was really invested in for a few years. And this was another, you know, guy who made his girlfriend, mom of his child, go missing. And she's never been found. It was 10 years ago. And they decided not to live stream that trial. So I had to like gather all the information from newscasts because it's a tiny little town where there was one lawyer that I know of that went, but her coverage was, it was good, but it was, she has a really different way of reporting out. And so I had to look at all the local newscasts who were there and listen to those journalists and then
Yeah.
take all their notes and put together my own document. And I was like, oh my God, it was really an investment. And so this is the thing where I put the document together and I'm like, okay, well, so here's because people, the few people who follow me know that I'm really into this trial and they watch all of my preliminary stuff about it for years. And it's like, I can't not cover the trial, but I
Yeah.
kind of can't cover the trial because it wasn't live streamed. So I'm going to do my best to put together a summary of this 2-week trial for you guys. It was so depressing. I'm in awe. I don't care. I got it out there, but I know what you're saying. And then, but some people, so I have to do better at that. It's like, there's gallows here, but you can offend people. You
Yeah.
don't want to be so, it's really a tough, it's
You don't
really,
want to joke. Another pod that I listen to occasionally, mainly just to see if they ever do these small towns near me, is that Small Town Murder. And
Mhm.
they flat out say, we're comedians. That's what our day job is.
Yeah,
So we're going to
yeah,
make jokes and all that, but we're not going to make jokes about the families or
no,
the deceased or the
right.
missing or anything like that. But we're going to rip apart law enforcement, or we're going to rip apart, the person who
The
committed the
perpetrators.
crime
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But we're not going to do that about the decedent and the families that are suffering and all that.
Right.
And the thing that they say that, uh, oh, it just fell out of my head. We're assholes. We're not. Uh, God, I can't think of it, but I think of it
Their
as the same
tagline.
thing. I'm an
Mhm.
asshole, but I'm not a mean spirited asshole.
Right.
I
Right.
have asshole tendencies to me, but because I do the same thing, I will joke with y'all. I mean, you've seen it in like your guys's pod
In the chat.
chats and stuff like that. I'm going to rip on somebody. Jimmy Christensen, great guy and everything, but that's just the back and forth that we have. Matt Ramage, me and him have back and forth too a little
Mhm.
bit, but it's joking. It's not taking anything serious. And that's how you got to do it, is you can rip on stuff, but you got to be tactful. You can't just go out like we were saying earlier about the one trial that I almost ended up on, where they were talking so badly about the person that it happened to,
Oh, yeah.
and you can't do that.
No.
You can't do that. That's not right. Because if it was the other way around and it was a person in your family, you would be having a fit if they were talking about him like that. Oh, you're getting rumbled
I
over
know.
there.
What the heck? I've got all my windows open right next to me here. The catio
We're gonna have true crime just on the last part of this episode.
it was it was a Harley or something.
But
Very
I'll go ahead and tell my two little stories because I don't have a lot of information on them because they happen. The one happened while I was in high school, and like I said, I heard all the scuttlebutt about it, but I never really did the research into it to fully do it. And then the other one I have a little bit more knowledge about, but not a ton. So the first one happened probably 2002, 2001, 2002. And there was a gentleman named Larry Pippinger who was a paraplegic. He was in a wheelchair.
mm-hmm.
And he was living in a house with another gentleman, Chris Him. And, not to speak, well,
Just say it.
I'll, they were meth heads. Well, I was going to say not to
Oh,
speak
okay.
ill will
Right.
of the one guy, but he was not a great guy. The guy that died was not a great guy. He was not a great guy.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he deserved what happened to him. So,
Okay.
I'm not trying to be like I was just saying. I'm not trying to speak bad about him because it shouldn't have happened. But I know who he was, and I know the stories about him, and he was not an angel by any means.
Okay.
But the story was, so what they found out was, or this is how it happened. There was a house in town that was on fire. At the same time as there was a house on fire in town, there was a car burning out in the country a couple miles outside of town.
Okay.
They put out both fires. They were both inflamed and everything else. When they got into the car, in the trunk was a suitcase. And inside the suitcase was a dismembered body.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get too gruesome with it
That's
because I know you said all that stuff.
That's good.
Well, it ended up being this Larry Pippinger. But when they went into the house, they found where he was killed and where all that stuff happened.
And that was
So,
burnt too.
yeah, the house was on fire and all that stuff.
Okay.
They pinned it all on Chris Him.
Okay.
And he's the one that went to trial for it. He's the one that's sitting in prison for it. But the scuttlebutt is because of the drug habits of both of them. They got into it a little bit too deep. And there's a big reason a lot of people think that is because do you know who Tom Arnold is? The comedian slash actor, yeah, who was married to Roseanne.
Yes.
He's from Ottumwa, which is only like 20 minutes away from me.
You're from Ottumwa? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so his sister, they made a documentary about a couple years ago called The Meth Queen, and that's his sister.
Okay.
And she was the meth queen, and she had reach.
Okay.
The scuttlebutt was that they got a little in too deep, and he owed the wrong people money, and that's what happened. And they just pinned it on Chris Him because Him happened to be living in the same house, doing the same stuff as Larry Pippinger was doing.
Wow.
So that's the whole scuttlebutt behind it.
That's intriguing. That's a mystery.
It is. Now, the main reason they think that he got in a little bit overhead, and I know I said I wasn't going to get too graphic, but if you've ever known anybody who's been on meth, it's hard to believe that they would do some of the things that happen to the body.
Okay.
Because they said he got methed up, killed the guy, dismembered him, threw him in the car. If you've ever known anybody, they get manic, but they don't get to the point where they're going to go nutsoid like that.
Have that kind of strength.
Right. They get into having a lot of energy.
Okay.
And stuff like that. But they don't go psychotic necessarily. supposedly when they found the body, the genitals had been removed and put into the mouth.
Oh my God. So that's very personal.
It's
Yeah.
very personal.
Yeah. That's like, okay. That's sending a message. Okay.
Exactly. So that's why a
Gotcha.
lot of people
Okay.
claim that it was a lot deeper than what they
So is he going to get a
said.
retrial, or are they?
He's, as far as I know, he's still sitting in prison. They found him guilty. He's in prison, and
It's
they
very
just
hard
let
to
it
get
lie that it was
somebody
him.
in there once you're found guilty. Did he have a trial? Found guilty, or
Yes,
do you
yeah,
think?
yeah.
Okay.
They went through a long trial, and he was found guilty, and of course he had no money, being that he was,
Sure.
so he was going
Public
through the public
defender.
defenders and all that. And
Mhm.
not to say that they're bad lawyers,
No,
but
right.
you know,
Yeah, it's not
and then
Ellen
the
Jackson. It's not Ellen Jackson from LA.
or it's not Johnny Cochran or
Mhm.
Ben Shapiro or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I have a little bit of connection, other than it being in the same town, and the town that I live in is only like 900 people.
Mm.
The guy who was murdered's daughter used to be my babysitter when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And my mom lived next door to the gentleman's ex-wife and daughter for years. So
Wow.
they lived next to each other. And I actually worked a little bit at a Blimpie sub shop with the ex-wife for a couple of years.
Mhm.
So I knew the
Close to
family, and
home. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the other one's even closer to home.
But
And
wait
this
a
one's
minute.
not as
Okay, before you go.
okay.
So on this one, has the Innocence Project looked at it or anything like that?
I really don't. It's been so long
Yeah.
since anything. I just know.
There's so many people in prison that maybe shouldn't be. I mean, it's not
And like I said,
most of
everything
them
that I
should
heard
be.
is
Most of
just
them should be, but there's
right.
many.
And
Yeah.
most everything that I heard was Scuttlebug. I don't know what was said during trials. I would have to go through the trial transcripts, because at that time, I don't think they really did any videoing in.
Oh, yeah. I had to go back when I was a kid because that was a million years ago, and find bits and pieces, microfiche.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I was like a
I'm a
detective.
genealogist. I've dealt with a lot of those too.
Okay. Oh my God. It took me forever. And then was it last year? The family of Rosie, who was not didn't survive, they sent me the whole trial. I haven't looked at it yet.
That that's quite the
I think it's all audio. I'm not sure.
yeah.
This trial, the guy who tried to get me was moved out of our. It was moved to Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay,
His lawyer and there were death threats. There were thousands of people
I can
from my
believe it.
city who were out in the courthouse. They had to wear body armor back then. That was
Yeah.
in the 70s,
No, well, I can believe it.
early 70s. Yeah,
There's
it
a
was bad.
case here in the. I live in the middle of this, so Atumwa's 20 minutes to the west, and then Fairfield's 20 minutes to the east. And a couple of years ago, two kids murdered their teacher, and it actually got national news there for a bit because of what happened.
Mhm.
And whenever they go to court, they're always in bulletproof
Yes.
vests and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you would actually do research for this area is full of that stuff per capita.
Um,
And about 2 hours north is Marshalltown, and that's where that young girl was kidnapped and murdered and that drew a lot of national news because the guy that perpetrated it was here. It wasn't quite illegal, but he had outstayed. Well, yeah, it was illegal. He had outstayed his visa or whatever, and she was a
oh,
college student, and I can't think of what her name is off the top of my head, but that happened. But
local. Yeah.
yeah, if you go through,
Mm.
just look in the Southeast Iowa, you'll find all kinds of cases, and it's crazy because it's more understandable in like bigger cities because there's
Sure.
more people there. But
Mhm.
because we're in, the biggest city around me is Atumwa, and that's like 26,000. So when I go to Green Bay every year, that's a big city to me. The 126,000, that's a big city to
Right.
me.
Right. Mhm.
So, but then, so yeah, with this case, I don't know anything other than what I heard, rumors and all that stuff for years.
Right.
I just know that the guy's sitting in prison, and yeah, the rumor is he just took a fall for
Right. And maybe he didn't
whoever was
want
sending a
to,
message.
maybe he was afraid to.
He would be next.
Right. Right. If he got off, he would be dead anyway. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Right.
And then the other case that I know of and has a personal touch to it, or personal knowledge to, is this happened in 20 oh what was it, mid 2010s, so probably 2015 or so. There was a guy in town that named Daryl Teeter, and now I can tell you the rumors behind that one too, that he had a medical issue that he would get pretty strong painkillers, and we'd
Hmm.
turn around and sell those painkillers.
Okay.
Now that's rumor. Again, I don't know.
Right.
That part of it I don't know. It's rumor. Well, the next morning, or in one morning, they found him dead, and he had been shot in the back of the head. And they found the kid, and he pretty much confessed to it and all that stuff, and all that. But which one? I know, and the reason why it's personal is I know the family, because my dad and his dad worked construction together, and then I worked at a couple of gas stations, and his dad used to, and one of them one of them was here in town, and his dad and his mom were in all the time, and I've known the dad since I was like knee high.
Mm.
So, and then his older brother was a year ahead of me, and his sister was a year below me in school,
Mm.
and I had kind of hung in the same group as this kid a little bit.
Wow.
So
The kid who shot or the kid who was
the
killed?
kid who shot, no, the guy
Oh,
that died
wow.
was an old gentleman.
Older. Okay.
Yeah, he was retired
Mm.
age. I know that for sure. Um, and he went in, and they don't quite know exactly what went down. They don't know if the kid was just trying to get more, and this Teeter didn't want to give it to him,
Mhm.
or what was going on. But
Mhm.
he killed him, took the painkillers, and ran. And so, but yeah, but what pissed me off about that trial is the kid got on the stand, and he
Oh, no.
flat out said, and I know the dad, and this, I can see his dad doing this, because his dad is that type of person that, he's protective.
Right.
And the kid goes, "Yeah, my dad
Oh,
pulled
no.
60,000 out of his safe and handed it to me and told me to run, but I just couldn't do that." And it's like, you literally just told him
Threw your
that
dad
your
under the
dad was
bus.
trying to evade
Obstruct
police.
bus justice.
I was like, really? Your dad did
Oh,
this, and you're gonna throw him under the friggin' bus?
wow.
So yeah,
But
that
he
one
was found
was,
guilty.
he was found guilty, and the sad part about it is he's a bit younger, so he's going to be in there for a long time.
Sure.
Because I think at the time I was mid-20s, and he was probably 4 years younger than I am.
Mhm.
So he'd been about 21, 22 when it happened. So, you
Wow.
figure minimum 25 to life
Mhm.
without parole. He's going to be in there for a while.
Wow. That's crazy. And he did it because of just wanting pain medicine.
Drugs. He
Yeah.
was addicted,
Wow.
and they were, supposedly it was like morphine style pain pills.
Mhm.
So
It is so weird how some people can get addicted to drugs and some people can't don't.
yeah,
But why was this guy selling his doctor prescribed drugs? I don't get that. Really makes me mad because That messes it up for people. Like, there are cancer patients who
Yeah.
can't get medication because of shit like this.
No, like I said,
Sorry.
that part of it, I don't know. That's rumor. It could
Right.
be completely wrong that the kid just knew he had it, so he went in and stole it, was
That's
going to
true.
steal it,
That's true.
and got caught. But
That can
that was,
happen.
yeah,
Yes.
the rumor had been that he was selling some of them. So,
Mhm.
but when you can get $100 for per pill, and you're on a pension, or not a pension, but you're on like Social Security and that,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
gonna do what you can do, because you got to remember you're in the high dollar area. I'm in the boot hills. You got to do what you can do to make money. But yeah, I mean, there's been other cases that kind of have personal touch. Like there was a kid that my brother was friends with and went to school with that uh, it was actually technically a school shooting, because they were in driver's ed class, and this one kid had, the girlfriend of this one kid had broken up with them, but the kid didn't accept that they were broken up. Well, this friend of my brother's was, kind of flirting and hitting on the girl that was presumed to be single, and the other kid didn't like it and told him, "Well, I'm gonna kill you." And they just kind of whatever. And
Mm.
the next day, the kid brought in his stepdad's
Oh,
service gun
oh
and
my
made him get
god.
on his knees and popped him.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of people are pissed off because they just released him 5 or 6 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not that's not good, because to make somebody get on their knees like that, that's kinda
And they were
over
16.
the
Now, my
top.
brother's 10 years older than I am. So he would have been 16 at the time. I've been about 6.
Oof.
So now I just turned 39. So this kid would have been 49 when he got, or in his 40s when he got released. So he'd been in prison
Mm,
since he was 16, but he still got released.
mm.
And there was no doubts about it. There were witnesses, there was proof,
Yeah.
there was everything else. And
I guess because he was 16, like, your brain's not developed and there all that
I know,
stuff.
but the other kid was 16 too, and he'll never be coming
Mm.
back.
No, I'm just
So
wondering why. Was he tried as an adult or as a kid?
that one, I will be honest, I can't tell you that one, because, like I
Mm.
said, I was only about 6 when that would happen. That
Oh,
one
wow.
happened.
Yeah.
I would have to go through. I just
Look.
remember because my brother was living out of state at the time. He actually came back for the funeral, and
Oh,
then
that is so sad.
uh
They're
the
just little twerps. Like, what the hell?
yeah, and then the graveyard that the kid's buried in, we have relatives that are buried near
Mhm.
where he's at. So I see the stone every time we go out for like Memorial Day and all that stuff. So that's why it stays in my mind so often, is because of that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I know I'm ending it on such a downer, but
That's really sad. That's
that's true crime for you.
Yeah,
That
well, you're talking like local stuff. I'm most of the things that I probably do this on
that's all I
purpose.
got.
Yeah, right, right.
I
The
can't
things
tell you
that
I
I
went out
watch
and did
are
anything.
way
That's
far
self
away.
incrimination.
Yeah. The things that I watch are like, except for this one coming up, which is gonna be closer to home, but,
But you,
we
like you said, you're also living in an area like 4 million people. I live in an area of like 900 people. So, you can't. That's why I never did anything when I was a kid, because 90% of the people in town knew who I was and knew who my parents were. So if I got
you
in
can't get
trouble, it
by
was
with
going to get back to
it. Right, right.
them. So
Well, hey, yeah,
we
so
probably should put a bow on it, because I think we're both
yeah.
kind of getting tired. Is
Well,
there any final things you want to put on this true crime episode?
I would just like to encourage people to watch actual trials.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the things you see on Netflix or whatever, they're broken down into just
Slanted.
tiny little pieces. You're not getting the whole story. A lot of times you're getting very much slanted, like you say, but also just you're just getting such a tiny bit. And if you sit
Yeah.
down and invest in one trial, just pick a trial. You don't have to become like me where you're like have a trial going on all the time. Although I do take breaks for months where I just like, oh, I can't. But and they're not always violent crimes. Like there's
Yeah.
financial crimes and other things that are interesting and educational. But I think bottom line is by watching trials, you're getting to know your government better
Yep.
and you're getting to know the processes better because you may find yourself a victim or a friend of or a family
Especially in the
member.
climate we're in now.
That's right. So it doesn't hurt to have that knowledge, and you might also find some of it very entertaining. Not
And
because
you
of
also
the
know that if you get
crime.
in trouble, you call Dawn, because Dawn has been through enough, has seen enough of these trials that she can help you out a little bit.
I can walk you through it. You can help. I go on my YouTube. I talk about I post in my community tab, once in a while, even though I'm not always doing videos. So I'm like,
Yep,
hey,
yep.
this is what's going on. Take a look at this trial, and I'll direct people to other channels and that kind of thing too.
I
But
know I get the notifications all the
I
time. I don't always check them, but I get the notifications.
yeah.
It'll
Sometimes
be
I'll
like,
put a
all right,
cat
what's
picture
Dawn doing now?
Oh, sometimes I'll put pictures of Todd. Oh, I didn't tell you. Okay, I got to go really quick. Okay, we'll just end this on a funnier note. It's not really that funny, but okay, cat story. So a few days ago, okay, so I have a new habit. I live in an apartment building now,
Yep.
so there's like my front door is really my back door, but anyway, it's there, and there's like a big, huge common area, right?
Yep, yep.
Like there's an elevator but there's just a lot of space and I have plants out there and this and that. And the last couple of weeks I got Tosh a collar with a little bell and it's got like an apple tracker in case she runs away because it's kind of open like a bird can come in once in a while.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, she might chase a bird, so I'm going to put the apple tracker on in case I have to go find her. And okay, so I'm out there and I'm working on this huge arrangement because I'm an artist, I'm creative, I'm always doing creative things. So it's like this immense project. And I
Right.
was working on it for hours and she was out there and I could see her. But anytime somebody else will come out their door, she'll run inside the apartment. And I have it propped open. She doesn't like other people. So I thought she was in the apartment. And once in a while, I'm like checking on her and I looked on the Apple tracker and I could tell she was right there. Well, she had, and I'm on the third floor. So we have an elevator, but we also have a staircase.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like boom, 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 boom. It's like, what do you call it? It's not straight down. It goes
It's
in
staggered.
zigzags. Yeah. So next to the stairs, there's a railing, and then there's just a little tiny ledge. And then in between all of that, there's like a 3.5, 4 inch space. So she could literally, you could drop something down 3 stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, guess who dropped down? God. God. And she was there for like an hour, and my neighbor found her. She was hanging on for dear life on the second floor in the middle of the between the staircase and the railing where she found a little 1 inch ledge for each foot. And I had to go. My neighbor's like, hey, Don, there's this cat. She didn't know it was my cat. There's this kitty. And I was just kind of finishing up. And I had come in the apartment a couple times and called her. And I put YouTube on and I play cats meowing because she'll come running. But she didn't. And I did, in hindsight, I did hear a scream, but I didn't think it was her.
Well, now she's really going to be pissed off. She's really going to
Oh,
gun for you because you ignored her in her
oh
time of
my
stress.
God. She was like, and she was all contorted. Like I thought her arm was broken. It took me at least 10 minutes to get her out of there. And I got her out of there and she's like hugging me and just like hanging on to me. And so she hasn't gone out there or left me. Like she's napping now, but she hasn't let me out of her sight since.
My cat
I'm
my cat likes to think he wants to go outside, but if
Mhm.
he ever steps outside, he runs and hides underneath our deck. And he did that one
That's
time
good
where
though. You don't want him out there. It's not safe.
my dad actually thought he had let him loose one time by
Hmm.
accident. He had just run out. So
Hmm.
I spent like a good hour before work trying to find this cat. And next thing I know, I just see this head pop up from him underneath the deck. And I went over and I had to grab him, and he had cobwebs and everything else on him because he had just hid under the deck because he was
Yeah,
like, I don't know what to do.
right. There's so I mean, Tosh she was a wild cat. She was from a feral cat family, and when she was like 6 weeks old, not even old enough to be separated from the mother, somebody, this was way out in the mountains, not here, found her in the mouth of a dog.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so she had been bitten her leg and whatnot, and she's like, and they saved her, and so she had to be like, bottle fed, and she
That's what
did
mine was.
medical treatment, and so these feral cats, but I knew she would do something like this again because she just has no sense. She has no sense. Like, how did that even happen? I still can't figure it out. I've looked at it a few times. I've taken pictures. I'm like, I don't know how she did that. But thankfully, I mean, I would have probably gone for hours thinking she was napping because the little Apple tracker showed her like right there. She was just straight down, you
Well,
know?
I got to give her credit. At least she wears the collar. My mom had a cat that if we tried to put a collar on her, she
Yeah.
somehow would slip out of it.
I'm surprised she hasn't. She does not like the collar. It's taken weeks and weeks and weeks for me to get her to wear it. And she's getting much better about it. She lets me put it on because I scratch her really good when she gets it on. And so she's like, oh, yay. The harness is another story. When I put the harness on her, she goes limp. She plays dead.
My cat does the same thing. You put a harness on him and he just falls over.
Yeah. So I take advantage, and that's when I like cut her nails and do shit to her that she doesn't want me to do. I just put the harness on her and she's
Yeah,
dead.
mine will fall over like he's dead and just start meowing like he's dying. And but we could have another podcast just on stupid stuff our animals do. So, but
All right,
anyway,
Joe.
Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said earlier, you guys can find her and Matt Pickett on Hey, We Like Your Pod. They're great. I've enjoyed all their stuff.
Thank
You will
you.
catch me occasionally in their chats and stuff like that, being the little asshole that I am. But
Mhm.
thank you for joining me. Hopefully we can get you and Matt on during the season sometime and get Mike here too, and we'll have a little powwow again like we did before. But
Yeah.
find us anywhere you find your podcast. Find them on YouTube, all the socials. Find us there. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as Mike would say, go pack, go, and aloha.